Hey everybody, Asher here, back with some more Kerbal Space Program, where you can see we are in the space hangar, and we are actually preparing to go to Duna. That's right. Now this ship that we're actually looking at right here could go to Duna by itself, but why would we just launch one ship to Duna? No, we're going to be taking a whole massive structure into space. You can see that our budget starts out at around 2 million, but that's going to change starting here with this wonderful flight featuring Jeb, Bill, and Bob as everything's okay. Everything is completely, absolutely okay. I love the disassembly like that. Now, one of the issues, unfortunately, is you don't get the explosions because of music I was playing in the background at the time. But there we go. First lesson of this is that we have a need for struts. Because when I'm building this ship and this launch system, you may have noticed that I tucked a bunch of struts under there before, as I had an accidental misclick that created some issues. But what you run into is that you can't use docking ports. They won't actually connect to a decoupler or anything like that. So you have to make a lot of struts to actually go around. So if you want to make things that can dock with each other, as this ship is going to, that's what you're going to have to do. Now, I did try designing a few new launch systems as well, because my money amount was actually previously quite a bit higher. But no, now we're mostly stable. There's still a little bit of rocking. But Jeb, Bill, Bob are going up into space. You can see the science station. You can see the landing capsule. This is actually going to be our orbiter here, which, looking back, I wonder why I put the nose cones up here, other than for maybe some aerodynamic lift. But this will be pretty much enough. And our goal for this first part here, as we're just going to be watching this launch, there's going to be a lot of launches this episode, but this is a similar launch. Even though we're using the Release Atmosphere 1.0, this is a launch system that unfortunately I do have to point straight up until the second decoupling for the asparagus staging. I tried to design some other launch systems and they just were not as effective as this. Something about 9 mainsail engines being able to push the crap out of everything into space. So that's still what we're doing here. We just got to wait. Normally you'd want to do your gravity turn earlier, but if I do a gravity turn too early and these don't get to drop straight down, we have problems. So that's where we're at. But the plan for Duna is to build a ship that has a bunch of stuff that'll be able to do a bunch of missions together. That includes 2 probes to do orbital missions, 2 landing stations, one's to put on Duna and one to put on Ike, and then 1 actual landing mission for a land and return, at least to Duna. I might be able to do the same ship to Ike as well. It just depends on how we're doing the fuel. So it's going to be a big ship. And you may have noticed that I have docking ports on both sides. The idea is that this ship, the last time I made a gargantuan ship like this, it pushed things forward and it was a little bit unstable as it would push because things would wobble around. Because the docking ports, as nice as they are, they don't keep things exactly straight. So what I'm going to be doing this time, I may dock something to the top of this depending on how it goes. I hadn't actually drawn out all the designs or anything for this. At the time of this launch, there's our top docking port. So we can attach something there. You may notice that that docking port is not perfectly centered because I could... Okay, so this is where I realize we didn't do struts yet again. So this is just something where, okay, we should be able to launch okay just as before, except I make one little play here right now. Is like, okay, 35, 36, we'll get up eventually maybe, but I should probably turn the nose up just to make sure we're actually gaining altitude. So that's what I try and do here. And did I mention before that this is something that's supposed to be going into space, so I didn't actually equip it with parachutes, right? Right? One tiny little turn and there we go. Where is... There's everything disappearing in. I just love how this whole system disassembles, but... Launch the 3rd. Jeb, Bill, and Bob eventually getting back into good health, good time. Our money is dwindling already. This is the most expensive part of the giant gargantuan ship that will be christened the Behemoth eventually. But we're just going to speed up the launch here. I do this in part just to let you know that yes, I do screw up things, and there's a lot of screwing around here from a long time of gameplay that I just didn't exactly stick with. But it's the sped up launch, so this means this is the launch that actually works, because there's some substantive things that we actually want to talk about today, especially like meeting things in orbit. I know we've done that before with rescue missions, but today we're going to talk about, you have a space station in space, let's actually meet it appropriately. So we're actually going up here into the sky. This is not the greatest time to launch ever, because you can see where the space station is further back. You want to do it with the station being a little bit closer. But look, we are actually going into space. We are actually able to make a flight out. So the orbit is going to happen anytime now. Just burning that last mainsail. And then we actually have the nukes. Like I said, this could make it to Duna just on its own, just with those nukes. But those 12 nuclear engines are going to be pulling everything out into space. So what we're going to be doing here, like I said, is doing a lot of docking with the space station. You're going to see little overheat indicators. Yes, we are out of the atmosphere. Nuclear engines will just heat up over time, but eventually as we get things a little bit closer, all you really have to do generally is just do some kind of prograde burn. As you can see, I let the orbits happen a little bit just so we could get a bit closer with the space station here. All you want to do is adjust your altitude eventually, and you can see the intersect point moving around just a little bit. One of your intersect points may not change very much, as long as you can have one that if you just burn prograde or retrograde, depending on how you need to adjust your orbit, eventually you should be able to get something that comes reasonably close. And you can see after this next pass, we will have an intersect one of probably less than 5 kilometers. There we go, 2.7, 1.7, that's great. Now, unfortunately, where this is going to meet on the horizon here is that I ended up doing a lot of docking. We're going to talk about appropriate docking in this episode again, because that's very important. But one unfortunate thing for recording is that a lot of this docking took place on the dark side of the planet. And if you know anything about watching Kerbal Space Program videos, it's that a lot of recording software really struggles with recording dark side recording. So we're not going to see too much here. You can see me zeroing out my... well, I already have the docking port targeted. I had previously zeroed out my target velocity, so our orbits are practically matched. I'm just going in ever so slowly. Now, ships in real life, when they dock or do space-style docking maneuvers, they will approach each other very, very slowly as well, like less than 0.1 meters per second. That's because, well, Kerbal Space Program has a little bit more fun with it. The docking ports are magnetized, so you don't have to be exactly perfect. It depends on what docking system you're using for real-life space or everything, but a lot of it relies a lot more on mechanical docking and fixtures instead of just magnets that'll magically pull things together and have everything be okay. So just a little bit of a turn there. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get all of the docking here, but the idea is that, once again, you want your prograde vector going the same place as your docking indicator. There's some mods that are really good for this. I've had some people suggest them to me in the comments as before. But if you want to go modless here, an important thing to do first off is to have your RCS thrusters on the center of mass of the stage that you're using. And then know your RCS controls, because you want to just translate to the left or right instead of rotating your ship, and then be able to push forward at the right time. So you can do all of this without. Some people, once again, prefer to go to the chase camera. I don't, because I like being able to free look around. But just a little bit of nudging to the right, a little bit of nudging to the left, and you can see the nav ball creaking ever so slightly. And the weird thing about the nav ball for this is that right is right, left is left, up is up, and down is down for moving the nav ball around. I'm so used to controls actually making things different, but there we go. Like I said, the docking ended up on the dark side. So the other thing that we're doing here, and one thing that I did off camera, was a lot of refueling missions. I actually topped off the whole space station. It took a lot of launches. That's where some of my money that I earned from contracts before actually went. But I do think it's worth it here. Now you'll notice as well that I don't have any oxidizer on this ship. The reason is that nuclear engines don't use oxidizer, they only use liquid fuel. So that's one way to cut costs from this mission. But next we have the test landing station. And remember, the test landing station, which is currently 473 tons. It won't be that when the Rockamax engines are gone. But Valentina Kerbin will be the pilot here. I don't know if we're bringing too many other people, but this is the one that was contracted for us for Ike, and we tested landing it on the moon, so we know it works as long as it gets there. And we know it's going to have some fuel to spare as well. So I probably don't need to bring completely filled fuel tanks just for the Ike mission, but because I am not entirely sure of how much fuel I'm going to need from my nukes to actually transport everything, that's what we're doing here. So there is Chad Hat, Necklace, Alstead, and Alvi Kerman. And please pay attention to the classes of people as these videos progress. You'll thank me later for that, but here we go. This is the Ike station, or it's going to be christened the Ike station, and right now it looks like the checks. This one had already launched well before. I kind of wanted a better, cheaper launch system, and here's actually I did want to show this because this is a really annoying thing that I've run into. There is a little top attach indicator on the viewing cupola, but I can never get things to attach there. There's actually a lot of items on the top or bottom that I cannot attach things to, so I'm trying to line up the docking port. And that's, if you complain that my docking ports are off center, I'm right there with you, and this is why. And this one is not perfectly center as well, but it's going to be about as center as I can make it. I mean, you don't have to have things perfectly centered to dock successfully. It just makes, it's just a quality of life thing. So I think I actually put it a little, no, that's pretty close. But launch, you can see Chad Hat and Valentina. Valentina very happy, Chad Hat not so happy. This is 8 times time acceleration because, like I said, we have a lot of launches. This is a sunrise launch. And if we just sat and watched everything in real time, this would be a very, very long video. So you can put your own fast-paced music in here. You can see the space station on its nice approach from behind here. You can see the intercept markers coming up. And then I'm going to put a maneuver node here, mainly just to know where to point the craft on the orbit. And from my experience with this launch system, I know I need to launch a little bit earlier than halfway before the node. I do have 4 poodles on this. And you'll see that I eventually stop paying attention to the maneuver node on here because I can just burn until I get the intersect. In fact, I kind of prefer to knock off the maneuver node, but you can see as well that I actually screwed up and missed it there. Maybe you didn't see it as well, but notice what happened up there, an eclipse. I thought I'd be docking in the sunny times, but no, there is an eclipse actually right there. Actually pretty cool. The first time I've had a orbital interaction eclipse happen right before my eyes. But that is the moon passing in front of the sun. It happens very often in Kerbal Space Program because they're all on the same plane with each other. You don't see eclipses nearly as often on Earth because the moon is on a different axis from the sun, which is on a different axis from the orbital rotation. There's better words for that than that. But they don't just line up pretty like this all the time. And this is going to be a full eclipse eventually, but like I said, I screwed up the approach for some reason. I think the main reason was that I let the space station be too close at launch. So by the time I got to orbital velocity, there wasn't a great way to do that here. So I'm actually ended up coming towards the space station from the other side, which is not what I wanted. If you can see from the eclipse and everything, that I'm trying to zero out my velocity as best as possible. It's a little bit of a problem here. And RCS is good for this. You'll notice I packed a lot of RCS fuel. We'll need it quite a bit later, but once I can zoom myself forward here to get just a little bit closer. All right, we're going to jump ahead just a little bit because I didn't realize in editing just how much I left for this approach here. Because like I said, or maybe I've cut out from the audio before, this docking compared to some of my other docking parts for assembling the station, this one actually took 50 minutes. So you can see here I eventually get impatient and I do something that I really don't advise, which is firing your main engines at 10 meters per second within 100 meters of your ship to try and get closer. Part of the reason is because I realized, oh God, I was targeting the wrong docking port and I actually need to pass under the space station. So there's Skytown Fun Park right there. There's me firing the RCS thrusters to try and slow down. I have to hit the poodle as well. And you can see that for some reason Valentina mashed the wrong button. And I think we're in a collision course with the whole space station. I'm actually a little scared to hit any RCS because I don't know if it's going to throw me into the station or where I don't have a great indication of where stuff is. But are we going to go Starship Troopers and barely miss it, or are we going to actually destroy our budget by breaking our whole system early? The solar panels are still out. The solar panels managed to survive, and we're clear. Valentina just did that. She's like, I meant to do that. The whole rotation thing is just fun. You got trolled. So there we go. Do a little bit of a time acceleration jump just to make it go. But once again, this is another docking that ends up happening on the dark side of the planet. So we just got to fast forward here to look. Docking happened. There's the Ike station attached. Took way longer than I meant for it to get there. But now that I know what side of the planet I need to go on, is that little tug is just saying, like, I'm useless. You all are putting all this RCS stuff on there without me. But there we go. We have increased crew. as we have plenty of people on here, I'll do similar fuel transfers because, like I said, I did top off my space station, which is nice when you can say that. But we'll go ahead and just look around. Things are happy, and go to the next thing. So this is the Duna landing station. It's like the Ike landing station, except it doesn't need to have the hitchhiker capsule because it doesn't require 8 people. It only requires 5 people. So we're in luck. And part of the struggle here is figuring out, I want this to do RCS as well. I already did put the thrusters on the center of mass, which is good practice. I'm just trying to find the best way to put RCS fuel on here. And unfortunately, one thing that I run into is that I don't want this to be asymmetrical or anything. And let's see here. Another thing that's sort of bugging me with construction is that the more, if I drag a part that I want to put only 2 of over an area that has 4, it'll just do 4. I need to remember my hotkeys for switching how many pieces are placed, but eventually I do decide just to do something else with the RCS fuel. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but since this is the Duna landing station, it's going to need a lot of parachutes. So part of the reason I'm really struggling with this is because I want to put a ton of parachutes on here. Drogue chutes, other chutes, everything. You can see I have all the science on there, but we're going to skip the launch and go straight to the docking because we're going to talk about docking proper. This is what you want to have happen. We're going to do a little bit more of an approach later on. You can see that I'm going really slow, 0.1 meters per second. And it is okay to time accelerate here, but you can see my prograde vector not quite on the level of where it should be. So I am doing some burns, and that is moving a little bit. Now this one here, I'm looking more ahead at where the docking ports are instead of looking at the nav ball. It really depends on what you want to play because you can actually dock from the cockpit without even being able to see anything. It is something you can do. It's not advisable. I don't like doing it, but some people that's easier for them because there's less things to focus on. But here is the Duna station docking with the Ike station. There are parachutes on there, actually a lot of parachutes. And we're just going in ever so slowly. Now our prograde vector right on the other marker, and I'm actually going to accelerate a little bit forward. You can see that I'm flashing on the RCS on and off as well. Part of the reason is because I don't want to do like a full burn. I don't want to go too fast. I want to have the ability to change course as needed. But more importantly for me, it's just a matter of if I need to translate, if I need to rotate my ship at all, I don't want to do it with the RCS on because that will actually alter my trajectory and screw things up. But right now, I should be pretty good if I just try and go forward. But I do elect to actually look at the docking port alignment to make sure things are working. And this is where I do a lot of camera rotation. Some people prefer the chase camera just because it's that if I'm lined up straight on, it's good. But I prefer being able to look around in 3D space. So that's what we're going to be doing, a lot of 3D space. I'm not coming in completely straight on. So this is something where I'm going to have to fix it maybe just a little bit, but 0.3 meters per second is also a lot faster than I usually go on for docks, so there's me slowing down to 0.2. Probably don't need to slow down much more than that, but going a little bit to the right. And the reason I'm going to the right a little bit is because I'm going to correct it, and very likely I'm going to be rotating the ship here in just a minute. You see I turned off the RCS, so I can actually slowly turn the ship towards the docking port. I just want to keep those things aligned. We're still pointing at the docking port, and now if I burn, it looks like a left burn or right burn, depending on what you look at, just from our perspective here. And you can see that I didn't get the ports or the RCS thrusters perfectly on the center of mass, because there is a little bit of a rotation every time I burn, but not enough to matter. But you see, you don't have to be perfect with the RCS thrusters, because as we're going to see here, these docking ports will just magnetize to each other, but tiny adjustment down at the end here. I am pointing a little bit off the indicator, so slowing down just a little bit more. The reason you don't want to go too fast, and really I'd advise docking no better than 0.1, is we actually got to snap and go. Sometimes, such as other dockings I've done in the past, you hit it and it actually just kind of bounces off. You got to go really slow to make sure the magnets connect. But another thing that you may not be able to see as well here, maybe you can catch it a little bit, is that the frame rate is starting to drop. As all of these pieces are floating together in orbit, we have a lot of parts, and I don't have the beefiest computer in the world. So we're just going to have to deal with it. But right now, The Duna station, the Ike station, and the orbiter slash transfer puller all together. And you'll notice I don't have a docking port on the bottom. That means the last remaining part of this is going to be going on the top. And that last remaining part is actually the lander for Duna. And here we go, the Duna lander, which I don't have Kerbal Engineer or anything on me, but should actually have enough Delta V with all those parachutes to actually land on Duna and get back up. It'd be great if I could also make it to Ike, but I'm not sure if my total fuel budget is going to do that. But I'm sitting here fixing staging. You'll notice I have 2 probes on there as well. I do have 2 missions for actually orbiting those probes around the planet Duna. And those, for relatively low cost, both have pretty high payout. So that's, I kind of like to think of this as the profit center of this mission. Going from kind of breaking even to not so breaking even, because right now, with all these launches, we're actually going to be getting somewhere in the neighborhood of being under 1 million Kerbal funds before this is all done. So are we going to have a bankrupt thing? I don't know. But since I'm not getting other contracts to actually go anywhere, I'm kind of having to go all in on Duna here. It's like my reputation isn't high enough and my tech tree isn't really exactly going where as it should be or could be. I'm not getting missions offered to other places. I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll fire a satellite to Eve or something. But you can see I skipped the launch again just because we know how to get there. But because this actually needs to dock to the top of the lander there, as there's an issue, I want you to see in the comments if you can figure out what the issue is. We'll talk about it in the next episode from time here. Here I want to take a little bit more time to tell you about the nav ball, because I did this docking pretty much exclusively looking at the nav ball. I could have done it from the in-vehicle view or IVA, but I just wanted to let you be able to see, if you want to watch this again, what happens kind of in and out. And it's too bad I don't have any like extra mods that show what thrust is going where. If you pay attention to the RCS thrusters, you can see this is mainly me trying to get a good angle so that you all can tell what's going on. So I zeroed out my velocity. I'm going to put myself just on top of this here, and we're just going to turn on the RCS any day now. SAS is good, RCS is good, it keeps things together. I did a much better job of centering this on the center of mass this time. So once again, just trying to get you all a good view. And it's going to come up to playstyle for whatever stuff you want, but all you really need to do is just look at the nav ball. If you do your RCS thrust to the right, if you do your RCS thrust down, up, you want to actually get your prograde vector, which is the yellow circle in there, within the middle of that pink circle, which is your target. And you can right-click to target pretty much anything that you can attach to, like that docking port. So I do a little bit of time acceleration. We're only going at 0.3 meters per second, and you can see we're drifting just a little bit, but this is pretty easily fixed. So let's see here. All we got to do is just burn our RCS a little bit, get ourselves up, and you see I'm actually burning up and to the right and left just to get that prograde circle in there, which means the only other part, the actual navigation heading, the thing that's in the center with the little dot and the line and the half triangle, I guess that's your heading marker. We all want to get that in the middle. And you see it's all right there together. I know it makes it look really easy, but with enough practice it does get there. And you can see, even if with just the angle here, I thought this was an interesting angle just to view it anyway, but you can see we're actually coming in great right now. I could probably use to adjust this a little bit to the right, and right is entirely relative for where you are in space, I know. And you can enjoy the blue curvature of the Kerbin atmosphere right here, but this is going to be a dock without really any problems. All because you can just get your different indicators lined up together and just a tiny burn up. I don't even need to rotate very much, and snap. So there we go. There is all these ship parts mostly together. Next episode, we're actually going to be flying to Duna, which is very exciting stuff. We'll talk about orbital transfers on a planetary scale and putting this final thing together. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next time with more Kerbal Space Program. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you caught some of the problems that may be coming up on the mission, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I love to see predictions. And obviously with this post commentary, I have the benefit of hindsight. So thanks for watching. See you next time.